Michael Herzog, The American Awakening, coming to you live from Round Rock, Texas. And I wanted to take just a minute before I go to my guest. We're going to get her up on the line in just a minute here and tell you that, I have run across in my journey after awakening here people that have literally left this country over what's going on. And you know what? I was almost one of them. I got to the point there after I had woke up and when I went through my dizzy stage of not knowing what to do, I thought about leaving. I was even examining other countries of which to go to. And I know of a number of people that have actually left this country, and the guest that I'm having coming up next is one of them. She's got a story to tell that I think we're all going to be fascinated with. I've gone into her website, and I'm going to give it to you. It's, as soon as I can find it here, there is a plethora of information in this website. Matter of fact, you could get lost in it for days. Well, maybe I can't find it. Where was it? If I can't find it, I'm going to have her announce it when she first comes up. Give me a second here, guys. Well, looks like I'm going to have her announce it. I thought I had it here, but evidently I don't. So, yes, here it is. Okay, copy this down. It's www.signs-of-the-times.org. Again, that's www.signs-of-the-times.org. Now remember, that's not an underscore, it's a dash, folks. So you might want to go in there, take a look around. You could probably get lost in there for days. I'm in it right now, and I've got so many articles. I've clicked on a couple, and I've read through them, and, you could just spend days in here. But without further ado, I'm going to bring up Laura Knight. Now, before I do that, though, I want to remind the listeners, unless I announce I'm going to open the phone lines, please do not call in because this lovely lady's got a lot to say. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a great listen, okay? But I don't want to interrupt her unless we decide to open up the phone lines, okay? So, and I know you guys are great out there, and I know that you're going to bear with me here, okay, because this is going to be a very interesting story. So without further ado, let's bring up Laura Knight-Jadczyk. Laura, are you with me?
I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, dear. How's the weather in France?
Well, it's been sunny part of the day, thunderstorms part of the day, generally chilly.
Generally chilly. Is the weather over there in the early part of May, is it generally cool, or is it normally, in the 70s, 60s, what?
Well, it should be warm. We are in the south of France. People come here because it's warm. It's like, the Florida of Europe. Mm-hmm. And it's been rather chilly, to say the least, and depressingly rainy, cloudy, quite a bit cooler than normal.
I see. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Laura, I have been perusing through your website, and, of course, I go through a lot of sites in my job, and there's so many articles in here. I mean, you could literally, I've clicked on a couple of them, and I read through them, and they're fascinating. But you could get lost in here for literally weeks. You left this country, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Well, we left in February of 2003.
2003. Okay. Now, for the listeners, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you did here before you left?
Well, most of what I did before I left was... I spent many years just as a wife and mother. I worked as a social worker for health and rehabilitative services in Florida. I spent 25 years as a hypnotherapist, working with various, psychologists and a single psychiatrist in my local hometown. Mm-hmm. And raised 5 children. Did, basically the whole normal riff on ordinary American life. I did have unusual interests because, of course, my esoteric work, my hypnotherapy, which got more and more esoteric as time went by because it was standard in the beginning, the kind of thing where you do under supervision, where you habit control or relaxation or insomnia therapy, that sort of thing. And it branched out into other areas where I was doing a lot of work that was private from referrals, people who wanted past life regressions and so on and so forth. And,
interesting. If I might stop you for a minute, just out of my own curiosity, in the course of your work or research, have you ever run across the name Dr. Lee Pulos?
Spell it.
P-U-L-O-S.
No, I haven't.
Okay, he's a psychologist. He wrote The Power of Visualization, and he was heavy into hypnotherapy in his profession. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so I was doing that sort of thing, and I had a pretty broad set of categories for phenomena in the world, which was what I was always fascinated with, and I thought I had it pretty well figured out, which was along the line of standard parapsychology, which is that the mind does everything. For example, poltergeist phenomena or stigmata, so on and so forth, those kinds of things were produced by the mind. And even to the extent that if somebody was seeing a UFO or something, I believed it was some kind of mass hysteria, that the mind was literally producing these things. So I was going along in that mode for quite a long time, and several people kept asking me, what do you think about UFOs? And I says, well, it's mass hysteria. And at the time, I even had a name for it. I called it the millennial disease.
Okay.
It was pre-2000, of course. So that ended one night when I actually saw one.
You actually saw a UFO?
Yeah. Okay. It was weird. It was a very unusual situation. Not only did I see it, but quite a number of people around the area. There were 3 articles in the local newspaper about it. And it was one of the witnesses was a state trooper who was the younger brother of a fellow I went to school with. I lived within 50 miles of where I was born all my life, so I pretty much knew everybody. And
was it one of those small towns where everybody knew everybody and all their business?
Well, when I was little, it was, but by the time by this time, it had grown so much because Florida has like 13, 14, 15 million people now. It went from almost nothing to one of the fastest growing populations in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty popular, but there was still the local people who had been there for several generations, and it was still kind of a closed society or closed network to what we call the snowbirds or the Yankees or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, that's what opened the door to a whole other type of research, because I wanted to know just exactly what the heck this was. Well, I had a cousin who was an engineer at NASA, and I talked to him, and I said, this is what I saw. This is, I described it to him, and, do you know of anything we have like that? I wanted to eliminate the possibility that it was, some secret technology. And he said, well, not what you're describing, not that I know of, but then there are things I don't know about. So that it didn't really give me an answer. But it did open the door to begin reading about some of this a little bit more seriously, and I spent probably a good several years reading, sometimes 10, 12, 13 hours a day, anything I could get my hand on, cases. And wouldn't you know it, lo and behold, no sooner do I start, actually just looking at the subject, and I wasn't going to make up my mind about it. All of a sudden, I got this really strange contact with this woman who called me up about some computer equipment, and we were having a conversation, and she mentioned that she'd had she wanted to know what else I did, and I said, well, I did this, mentioned the hypnotherapy, which you don't really mention that often to people. It's just not done.
No, I understand. Yeah, it's by request, really, I think.
Right. So she was all of a sudden, oh my God, you've got to hypnotize me. Something happened to me. I went to a funeral and several years ago, and on the way back, something happened really unusual, and I think it was a haunting by my aunt, and she described the situation, and it was like a classic missing time scenario, which I had just fret about it. I mean, come on, I just was getting my feet wet. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to prove that this whole abduction business is a state of mind, that it's it's a cover for something else. Maybe somebody's been abused and they're explaining it as being abducted by aliens or whatever.
Right. Yes.
So I was basically loaded for bear to steer and I shamelessly, I'm even ashamed to admit this right now. I shamelessly tried during this particular session to lead this woman away from any idea of any kind of abduction, any kind of aliens. And, of course, in her conscious mind, there was no such thing. But this is what came out, even though I was saying, leading in such ways that I did not want her to go there. It's hard for me to explain that, but...
You're doing good.
But in any event, that's what came out.